So for today, I'd like to show you a super quick way to teach your child how to tell time on an analog clock. So before this lesson, the children should be relatively proficient in number lines. So skip counting on number lines, identifying missing numbers on number lines, particularly in between the fives. So counting by fives to 60 and understanding how to identify in between on a number line if the numbers are covered. For example, the number 52 or the number 48, finding the 50, counting back 2, or counting the 50 and counting forward by 2. And you'll see the connection with the clock in a second. So the first thing I do is I actually just draw a simple number line starting at 1 and going all the way to 12. And then I actually just use an arrow, and I will coordinate the colors that I typically use with the teaching clocks we have in the classroom. That's not necessarily something you have to do, but I just found that it allows them to jump to using the clock really quickly. And then I talk to them about identifying what number on the number line the arrow is pointing to, but I don't point directly to the number. So we talk about how this is still the number 1, so it's 1 and a bit. It's not quite at 2, so it's still at the 1, so it's 1 and a bit. Or reading, this number here, we're still at 3, we haven't reached 4 yet, so it's 3 and a bit. We don't know what that bit is yet. So that's the way we start telling time. We use this number line. This number line corresponds with the inside of the clock. They don't know that yet. They still just think they're working on number lines. So then what I do is I actually make the number line wavy. Same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we do the same thing with the wavy number line. So what is that number? Oh, it's 5, but it's not quite 6. What is this one? It's 8 and a little tiny bit. And they get proficient at using the wavy number line. Eventually, and this is usually when they actually figure out that we're learning to read the clock. So I don't actually set the learning goal for this because I want them to think they're reading number lines at first. So then eventually I make the wavy number line, and I get wavier and wavier and wavier until it eventually forms a circle. And then I have same number line, and then they actually figure out that it's a clock. But we practice again. If the arrow is pointing here, well, it's between the 12 and the 1, so it's 12 and a little bit. So you actually have to point out that example when it becomes a circle. Or again, if the arrow, and I even begin just like this. Where is that? Well, it's 6 and a little bit, but it's not 7 o'clock yet. And then once they're able to do that, I talk about this number line, and then separately we do a number line very similarly. We work with the number line flat first, where it starts at 0 and goes to 60, but goes up in increments of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, all the way up to 60. I can't reach it with the camera, but of course it would go all the way up to 60. And we've practiced this on an actual number line where I've covered up when we've done our number line work earlier. I've actually covered up all of these numbers in between with sticky notes on the actual number line, and we've practiced knowing what number that is. So again, and I might use a different color at that time, but working with this number line, okay, these numbers are missing. This is 15. What does that one have to be? And they're able to say, okay, well, if that one's 15, 1 back would be 14. So we get proficient at using this number line, and I will eventually remove all of the numbers, just making sure that these tick marks are more prominent at the landmarks, and they understand to count by fives to find those, okay? And then what we do is we put those two number lines together, where I have my inside number line, and then I have my outside number line, and then I use my arrows to point to the inside number line, and then maybe to my outside number line. And when I'm color coordinating those number lines, they understand to use the short hand to read the inside number line and the long hand to read the outside number line. And within one lesson, they can read an analog clock to the minute. Not only that, but they can do a lapse time if they've been working on their number lines previously, because they can understand how many minutes or how many tick marks are away. They understand the concept of the 60 tick marks is the once around the clock. So you'll teach that concept, and all of a sudden they can read time on an analog clock.